Is this interview?
Hey everybody, this is BL Blankenship, and I am so happy to be here today with our guest, Al Nickerson. Al has worked for Marvel, he's worked for DC, he's worked for Archie, Nickelodeon, a whole bunch of places, taught in comic books. He also has his own graphic novel, Sword of Eden. The list of accolades is a lot, and we're going to cover that here today in the show, go for maybe about 30, 45 minutes, something like that. Al, it's great to have you on. You're here in New York, and I'm over in Knoxville, so we're on the same time zone, so that's easy and convenient. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I wish I was in Knoxville right now.
No, no,
We
you
got,
don't. It's
oh, I
it's
don't
it's
know, man.
ice. It's
I
ice.
really we got snow. So a couple weeks ago we got like 7 inches of snow. Then we got 3 inches of snow, and then yesterday we got 3 more inches of snow.
We
Uh,
had the blizzard of 93, and this is like worse than the blizzard of 93. I've been trapped in my trailer since Monday. The whole like parking lot is a sheet of ice. The side roads are a sheet of ice. The main roads are good.
I didn't think that I didn't think Tennessee in general got a whole lot of snow.
It doesn't. This is weird. It's a freak thing. It almost never snows, and when it does, it's a powder. But now it's legitimately bad. And if it was like in Ohio or New York or wherever, they'd know how to handle it because it would be normal. But
Yeah,
it isn't.
I
Never
don't
happened.
like the normal here. I mean, I really would love to move to Tennessee. So if I can get out of New York, that would make me very
A
happy.
lot, a lot of people from New York and California and everything. And I don't want to be mean to like other people, but I'll just say people that want to get away from it because of how things are going and in those states are moving to Tennessee and Florida. I mean, like in droves. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but like you can like carry a gun on your hip where people can see it or have it concealed in Tennessee.
Yeah,
Um, except for a few rare places, schools and courthouses, you can't have a weapon there. But in Tennessee, it's open or concealed carry because Second Amendment.
well, in Tennessee, it's still America.
Mhm.
New York, not so much. So that's one of the reasons why I want to leave. But
Yeah.
anyway, so thank you for the introduction. That was very kind of you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, and I'm glad to have you here. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we can talk about in this because you said that you started in like 1994.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot has changed and the music industry's changed then. People couldn't used to just like make an MP3 and put it out there, and you're not forced to buy a whole album for a song. It completely changed everything. Independent is a bigger deal than record labels now. With publishing, you used to have to get a literary agent and go into a publisher. Now you've got Ingram Spark, you've got Amazon, you've got Lulu, you've got Draft to Digital, you've got all this stuff. Anybody that wants to publish a book for better or for worse, if it ain't that good, it's not going to sell that much. But for better or worse, they can publish a book and do that now. And you have sort of that kind of thing with comics coming up and even more so. And I've read some unfortunate things about people cutting artists out and trying to get AI. If you don't care if your character has like 18 fingers on one hand, but it's getting smarter and improving. But right now, that's what AI art looks like. Even though some of it's kind of, it's not consistent. It's weird to me. But yeah, yeah, I've got mine out on Kindle Create, so it's on Comixology and an ebook on Amazon Kindle, and then I published my physical print on demand through Ingram Spark, so that's how I've got it out the gate, and with Diamond. So I mean that's weird. That's how things are working out now because that used to you just have to go to a press and you'd have to have like so many thousand or whatever made and everything like that. So you've taught on comics and everything. So I mean you don't just have like you can't just like share ideals. You can like give an education on it because you know your stuff. You've been around this in the thick of it.
Yes. So thank you for making me feel old. So yes, I've been very busy. A couple things. It is interesting the way the music industry has changed in regards to because like with records, they first started with just singles, and then they went into LPs, and then now it seems like it's coming back to singles again. I think it's a very interesting time. Not just music. I really want to stay on topic. In regards to comics, because now you can self-publish your own work and get your book to your audience with very few obstacles and very few people in between you and your readers. And I think that's great. I've had literary agents before. I've had Hollywood lawyers before. But now I would just say, if you want to work in comics, do creator owned work, write and draw your own work, and self-publish your work. And now's a great time to do that, because I sell directly to readers. I sell directly to comic book stores and Christian bookstores and mainstream bookstores, and that's great. And it's great for me. It's great for the stores, because we get more of the profit of the book. I even like working with distributors now. It's just kind of like, because I work with Diamond, and that was great. I work with christianbook.com, and that was great. And they sold out of the Sword of Eden graphic novel, and I appreciate that.
That's an awesome book too. I have it, I've read it, and I loved it, and it's all everything about it, the story, the pacing, the artwork, it's great.
Oh, I didn't even know you read it.
Yeah,
So
oh
thank you.
yeah, yeah, I own it.
Oh man,
I read it.
oh, that's right. I think I yeah, I did know that you got that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So now, there's there for decades there have been all these gatekeepers in the comic book industry, whether it's a publisher, an editor, distributors. So just bypass all those people. And I understand, because I did used to teach at a college, and I taught there for 10 years, and I taught on comics, and I taught intro to art and design too. And I understand how artists, especially young artists, they don't want to think about the business side of entertainment. They don't want to think about contracts and submitting work to publishers and that sort of thing. They just want to draw, and I get that. But if you want to have a successful career in art or in entertainment, you got to understand the business side of things. And I love the business side of things. So yeah, I would recommend self-publishing, do your own work, work directly with stores. If you want to work through Diamond, that's great. And you need to learn about self-publishing. You need to learn about contracts and that sort of stuff. And one thing I would highly recommend, if somebody is interested in self-publishing, is to get Dave Sims' book, The Cerebus Guide to Self-Publishing. And that's just fantastic. Dave talks all about printers and creating artwork and creators' rights and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's great. So that's kind of where I stand now, just self-publish and working on my own work and
Cool.
getting it to readers and stores, and it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. What comic was it that made you fall in love with comics, made you want to do it? What were you, a Batman? Were you super? What were you about?
When I was really young, yeah, it was like Spider-Man and Batman when I was really, really, really young. And there was and the cartoons like the Justice League,
Yes.
Super
Super
Friends,
Friends. Yes.
the Spider-Man cartoon. So when I was really, really little, I loved that stuff. And my parents were very supportive, and that's great. And there was a comic, Detective Comics, and they had a back up story of a character called Manhunter by Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson. And the way
Yes.
Walter drew Batman with the long ears and the cape that was like 30 feet long, I thought that was like the coolest thing. But when I got older, I became a huge Marvel fan, and I loved all the Marvel books. And when I was in high school, I loved the Marvel comics. I loved, and I still love John Byrne's run on X-Men and Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. And I just love that stuff so much. And then when I got to college, I was reading more independent stuff. And then I had some great teachers in college. And yeah, I wanted to work for Marvel and DC. And after college, I was a graphic designer for a couple of years. And I ended up, working for Marvel and DC and Archie. And I was an animator for Sesame Street and Nickelodeon and MTV. So that was a lot of fun for the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that there's a big transition too, not just so you've got the comics and yeah, you've got the internet stuff and all that, but you've got like a lot of visual medium. You've got Netflix that's made some shows, Disney, where they own Marvel now, they're making TV shows and movies and all that. So people that aren't familiar with film are, that it's almost like the Lord of the Rings thing, that you had people that were really upset with the Amazon series of that, because they're like, that's not the way that it goes. I'm not familiar with all the pre-Lord of the Rings stuff. I thought that it was fine for a show, but apparently it doesn't line up with the books, and there were people that wanted to just, I mean, they were rampaging over it. How well do you think that like a lot of these shows portray the character? I mean, I liked Daredevil that Netflix did. I felt like that was more like Daredevil than the movie. I mean, they've got that, they've got Invincible, they've got all this stuff. Do you think that is it like the comic
I don't
overall?
I don't watch any of that stuff.
Okay.
I was a huge fan of Invincible, the comic book, and I loved it. And I was kind of excited when I heard about the animated series, but some of the animation I saw on the trailers, it didn't feel like the comic book.
Okay.
And there's a lot of politics in entertainment now, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
politics in the comic book industry, which um, really doesn't make me happy. And I don't, well, there's two things. I don't think Hollywood does a very good job with portraying the original source material. They take a lot of liberties with things, and that I don't like. And I also don't think, and there's a lot of guys in comics, man, where they just want to get that Hollywood deal. They want to create an IP and get the book out there and have like a Netflix deal or Amazon or whatever. And I think that's just a bad plan. I think it's bad for a couple of different reasons. One being that I don't think we need Hollywood to validate our medium, to validate the art form. And you should want to love the form of comics, and working comics. And that's what you want to do. That's what you should really focus on. So I've dealt with Hollywood before. I've dealt with developing an animated series for the Fox Family Channel with a friend of mine. I have no interest. I had several Christian book, several Christian television shows interested in the Sword of Eden, and which was kind of exciting for a little while. The thing was that when they started crunching the numbers, it was just too expensive to do an animated adaptation of the Sword of Eden. So that's as far as I got in regards to adapting the Sword of Eden into another medium. But I'm really not interested in doing that anyway. And I don't watch any of this Netflix, Amazon. I don't watch the Marvel movies. I like the idea that superheroes have become more respected in America. I like the idea that comic books have gotten a lot more respect in America. And if it gets more people to read comics, I think that's great. I don't see a whole lot of crossover there, though. Maybe with the Watchmen movie, a lot of people started picking up the trade paperback when that Watchmen trailer came out. In 1989, when the Tim Burton Batman movie came out, a lot of people started reading Batman. But and The Walking Dead, that was a very good example of people. But I don't know if there's anything else that really has that kind of crossover where they'll see the movie or hear about the TV show and go into a comic book store and pick up the book.
Yeah, oh, I think that it hugely. I mean, it put the people that hadn't heard of The Walking Dead. I mean, immediately, like the compendiums came out in the stores, and they got them. So absolutely, and I think it's hard in in the main stuff and all that nowadays, because whether it's good or whether it's bad, you have people on YouTube saying that they hate it for one reason or another. I've watched the movies. Black Adam. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, not like the best movie I've ever seen in my life, but I thought that it was a solid movie. And it'll be like, well, it was a failure, but I would like to fail like that movie failed. It's like it only made so many $1 million. And so on and so forth. I thought that both Wonder Woman movies were fine. The first one was quite good, and then the second one I thought that it was strong. And just different stuff. The weirdest thing was the Superman versus Batman movie. I don't. I loved the death of Superman, and we're talking in comics, like when it happened.
Oh yeah,
That was just like the best thing that I had ever read in my entire life. Doomsday is coming. Doomsday is coming. Doomsday is coming. So it's like we've just got to cram him in this movie, like we did Venom in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, and it it did. Anybody that loved that comic wouldn't be thrilled. I don't feel like with the fact that he was crammed in it, and he was done fine. That movie was like weird, and it felt like weird the way that it was filmed, and it got better as it went on, and they stuck Wonder Woman in it. And they had Batman versus Superman, which is another comic book thing, and Do You Bleed and all that. But then it's like they've got to have Doomsday come up in it and have a final battle at the end, and it was just totally weird, but it was okay. as a movie. So you've written a Christian comic, which I love that, and I mean, and you know that there's a lot of comic book characters who I've heard people are trying to change like the continuity of them. Like I always loved Nightcrawler
Mm,
because he's so devoutly religious. He's raised by a bunch of monks. You know, Daredevil, he's
yep,
Catholic.
yep.
Benjamin Grimm, the Thing, he's a Jew. Magneto, he's a Jew. He had the whole Holocaust thing going on with him, which I think it would be amazing just to have more scenes of that. It's weird that we live in a world where people kind of are acting like that never went on, and you see things repeating themselves. Um, but I mean, I think that things like that build character and they have structure, um, where somebody can like go to that or hold to that, and this one's this way and that one's that way. And you know, that Christians once had representation, I guess, in comics. You know, in your comic though, you have Sword of Eden, and the girl. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. As far as I remember, she's Jewish,
Yes.
right? Yes. And she gets the sword that was there that the angel had in the Garden of Eden, and she fights the supernatural
Mhm.
demonic forces. So that's like kind of the synopsis. And I thought, man, that is so cool. You know, that's just a really neat plot and a neat storyline. And it's not like overly preachy or religious, like where there's no flow of it, but you're not afraid to work that in a way that works with the story. Did you ever read Boom? Is it entertainment or comics or whatever they called? Did you ever read their four-part comic series Judas?
Boom Studios did that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, so I wasn't for a while, and I recently somebody like posted it on Reddit, and they said, and it's pretty good. Now, like as a preacher and everything, I'll say there's nothing sacrilegious about it. It like turns into Jesus fan fiction.
Oh, you know what? I think I did see that.
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
like Judas went to hell and or
yeah,
Hades came back again?
yes. So
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the first book, Judas hangs himself and he's reminiscing about all this stuff with Jesus, and then like all the demons are coming for him, and then Satan shows up, and then in the second book, Satan is giving his narrative, and you know, and he's saying the story's broken and all that, you know, because Jesus died and he still feels like he won. And he says, "What story?" And he says, "The only story." And you know, and he goes on how I'm the way that I am because God needed a villain. It's a very Satan thing to say, and talking about this character in the Bible and that character in the Bible, and Jezebel wasn't so bad and Pharaoh wasn't so bad, and yada yada yada. And he's trying to play God up like the bad guy, and then here comes Jesus, and it's a bunch of stuff. And in the end, it goes the way that you know that you would want it to go, that it should go, but there's like some drug out stuff there where Jesus doesn't just like, you know, go to curb stomping the devil through hell, which I really think that it was more that way. uh but they've got the devil with the upper hand until the end, and then they get whooped.
Well, the world is wicked. Satan, the devil, is here to rob, kill, and destroy.
Mhm.
I don't know if the views, like the plot points you point out, are the same views as the author or not. But I remember flipping through it. I'm like, I can't, read this sort of stuff. I think that there are some publishers out there, and they make some really wonderful uh, comics and graphic novels based on the Bible. I think the Action Bible is really good
Yeah.
by David C. Cook. Kingstone Media or Kingstone Comics down
Yes.
in Florida, they do a lot of wonderful biblical comic book stories, and we should read those. Those
Yeah,
those are. But what I want.
they do historical stuff too,
Oh
like
yeah, like the
patriotic
martyrs.
things.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Early church fathers and martyrs. Oh, it's great, but it's all based on truth.
Mhm.
So I like that. When I but I like superheroes, and with the Sword of Eden, I wanted to create a work of fiction that had the gospel message in there, and that's what the Sword of Eden is. And yeah, there's very strong themes there. I do give the gospel message. Um, I think, yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just want to give back to God. So God has blessed me with a great career in comics and animation, and that's wonderful. But I wanted to give back to Him,
That's
and I wanted
awesome.
to create something that Christians could read and not feel like they're insulted or that they're compromising their principles. And the Sword of Eden is aimed at an audience of preteens and older, so preteens to and including adults. And if you like fun superhero stuff, yeah, you should pick it up. So yeah, yeah. So I love working on that, and yeah, the readers have been great, and the stores I've been dealing with are great. So it's a lot of fun. So now I'm working on the sequel, which I'm hoping to get printed sometime this summer.
That's excellent, and I agree with you. It's a great book for people to pick up again. I loved it, read it. I think that it's good stuff there. Um, do you have any good memories of like working in like the comic publisher industry thing? Was there anything that you particularly loved about that? I know that it had to be like bright and sunny and all that. Was there anything that was like joyful for you there?
Well, comic publishers have a really terrible history in regards to treating artists and writers and kind of swindling properties and ideas from creators. I never put myself in that kind of position, so I was just an animator or an inker when I was working for these different publishers and studios and television, that sort of stuff. So at the time, it's fun. You know, it paid the bills. I often say it's better than digging ditches, so I appreciate that. And I love the medium. I got to draw for a living, and that's fantastic. But after a while, it's just kind of like I just got tired of it. And yeah, so I'm very happy with what I'm working on now, which is great. The comic book industry has changed a lot. I can never go back and work for corporate owned comic book publishers ever again. I can't see myself ever working with an editor again who's telling me how to write and draw my own stuff. So I like the freedom. I like the control of self-publishing and working on creator own work. And that's great. But yeah, for the decades I've worked for like Archie and DC and Marvel, I mean, it was fine. Some publishers were better than others, and DC was very flattering, and I think they paid me the best, and they probably treated me the best until recently when I had some difficulty getting a couple of royalty checks from DC where they didn't want to pay me, and I had to remind them of my contract with them. So I actually posted a video of that on YouTube. That was a bit of a aggravating situation. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, it was fine. But yeah, I can never go back to it. I love the medium, so I don't want to. So I just want to make sure that we separate the medium of reading comics and creating comics from actually working under work made for hire conditions. And yeah, I can never do work made for hire ever again.
No, no, I understand that. I mean, I've been in graphic art. It's totally different. It's in the t-shirt industry. So I'm Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator and all that. But I've worked at different places, and the place that I work at now, goatees plus fast signs, red letter number 9. We do all the shirts in the Hobby Lobbies and everything. I'm technically not the person that does that. John McKinney's way more of those. He's one of the owners, and then Lewis is one of the owners as well. We do a lot of minor league baseball stuff and all sorts of stuff. But no, it's great. And a lot of businesses, it's like who you work with. It's like who your coworkers are, who you're surrounded with and all that. But yeah, when I started getting into that, I thought, what's a job that wouldn't feel like a job that I wouldn't hate? And I thought, well, what am I good at? And so I was applying to be a graphic artist, and you think, man, I'll like this, and you do if you're treated well. It's really nice if you like your coworkers. I worked at J.C. Penney for years and years, and I had phenomenal coworkers, and it made it a great job. But if you have just coworkers that are ill, it's different. Or I've known people that were in gospel quartets that had to fight to get their paycheck, and they don't do that too long. I know it's sad. They don't do that too long. That's not every quartet. There's some rare ones that are that way. But yeah, it's there's things that can be bad situations because you don't feel like you're being treated right, which gives you the wandering eye and everything like that. So what's the direction that you feel like comics are going? I mean, like clearly, hang on. It's telling me that I have only a few more minutes. Okay, we got like 9 more minutes. I mean, clearly things are a little bit different. There's huge names out there. There's Batman. There's Superman. All that stuff. It's not going away. Those are their top level at DC. There's Spider-Man, X-Men with Marvel and so on and so forth. Image, I'd say Spawn. You know, Spawn's been there from the beginning. It's never went away. But you do have these creators that are putting out Kickstarter campaigns. They're making a few $1 million, and I mean, I don't know. If I was making that kind of money, I feel like they have fans. You know, it's if I was making that kind of money, I mean, I'd be cranking out like 24 issues of that thing a year off of something. Because you know, I mean, people could say, well, they can't compete, and kind of you can't. But at the same time, it's like, well, but it's taken them like 6 or 8 months to you know, and they're a writer. They're not the one drawing it. So I mean, hire the artists. Say, how many artists do I have to hire to get 24 issues going out in a year? Because how huge are the teams and real, like in big comic companies like that do Spider-Man? How many people are touching a comic?
Well, you know, you have a writer, you have a letterer or a studio that does lettering, you have somebody do the coloring. Traditionally, you would have a penciler and an inker doing the actual artwork, but I don't know if they're really combining that now, where you have somebody just writing and I mean penciling and inking the artwork. I think it's interesting because I know not too long ago, a couple months ago, Rob Liefeld was saying how he thought that DC Comics would probably go out of business this year because things are so bad for comic book retailers and for Marvel and DC because they're producing a lot of comics that people don't want to read. Um, I know that Phil Boyle, he owns 10 or 11 comic book stores down in Florida and Jersey called Coliseum of Comics. And a couple of months ago, he wrote a letter where he was criticizing the state of the comic book industry and the direct market, you know, with comic book stores in regards to Marvel and DC and corporate owned comics, and how those books aren't selling. And he gave suggestions on how to fix that. And I've talked to retailers, and you know, the ones that are really relying on sales of Marvel and DC comics, they're not doing so well now. And a lot of these retailers have to adjust their business model where they're selling a lot of back issues, which is great, or action figures and video games and cards and that sort of stuff. And I think that's fine too. But I think retailers just relying on sales of Marvel and DC stuff, I mean, that's not sustainable. That's not going to keep them in business. And honestly, I don't think Disney or Discovery Warner really care about the publishing end of comics. And I talked to a real retailer a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying how like Marvel and DC does not even care about retailers. So yeah, I don't, and you know, the corporate owned companies that own Marvel Comics and DC Comics, if they don't care about the publishing side of things, then yeah, I don't see a future in that. So that's why I also think it's a great time for self-publishers and creator-owned writers and artists to make their own work and
And
work.
they are on the rise. They're totally on the
They
rise
are. It's
already.
amazing. It's a great opportunity for anybody who wants to self-publish and work on create their own work. Bypass all the gatekeepers, work directly with retailers, and you know, get your stuff out there. I think it's great. I think it's a great time for independent creators right now.
Excellent. That's excellent. So
Yeah.
the people that say about these the Marvel DC what have you, get Frank Miller and Chris Claremont. The reason that they don't is because they don't want to.
Was it Mark Millar, who said something like that recently that to save Marvel and DC, they should just hire like these big guns again? There's some.
Because I know those names. You know, the people that love those comics know those names, and if you saw those names on it, it'd be like, that's a name that I can trust. Shut up and take my money, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there are some people. I think Phil Boyle again was saying something like this that you know, it might be too late, you know, for Marvel and DC. And I feel bad for retailers. And I was communicating with Phil Boyle again, and I was telling him how retailer, you know, as a self publisher, retailers aren't my enemy. Uh, my readers are not my enemy, you know, and we should all, you know, work together and, you know, keep this industry going. Um, yeah, I'm not a big fan of publishers now or editors and that. So, yep, it's a great time for people like me and you. So, yeah, it's wonderful.
You know, I'm trying. If when I put something, and I had somebody, and we talked about this. We got like 4 more minutes left.
Okay.
I had somebody reach out to me, a publisher, not nowhere near as big as that, and said, you know, we see that you've got this Zorro Kills book out, and you know, we'd like to publish it for you. You know, it's already available everywhere that there is. I'm just trying to get out through Diamond. They saw that and said, yeah, let us take this on, but we want to have all the trademark and all that. So somebody comes to somebody like me and says that, and you say,
Don't sign a deal like that. Ask if you can retain trademark and or copyright, because once you sign those rights away, they own everything. So they own the property, they own the book, they can toss you aside. If there's a Hollywood deal, they can do whatever they want with you, with the property, and not deal with you at all. So yeah, that's a deal breaker. But there's no reason, if somebody wants to work with you, there's always room to negotiate terms of a contract. So I would ask them. I would ask them if you could retain copyright and trademark, and see how they respond. If they say no, then they're really not that interested. So
and those were the founding principles that Image came out with when they came out, right? That
no,
you could, it was, wasn't it? It was creator owned, and you could
it
own
was
your own
creator owned. Yeah.
property.
So exactly. So the creators left Marvel and they wanted to do creator owned work. So they retained copyright and trademark of all their work. So Image Comics, they just own the logo,
Mhm.
and that's it. So, you know, but even working with Image, I mean, there's some things I don't like about that. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, but I got the Sword of Eden, so that makes me happy. So, and I'm
excellent.
always happy to give advice. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you, everything that you do, the passion that you have for comics. Again, your writing is great. The Sword of Eden is a great book. I encourage people to go out, get it, buy it, read it. There's, I liked everything about it. I mean, I thought it
oh,
was awesome.
well, I'm glad I'm sitting down. You would have knocked me right over, but yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, so if people want to read the Sword of Eden graphic novel, go to theswordofeden.com. I'm on, and I have links to eBay and Amazon and my online store, and retailers can contact me as well if they want to carry the book. Yeah, so it's great. So I sign all the copies that are sold directly from me. I include limited edition prints, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
So God is good. God has been good to me. So
All the time. And
yeah, man.
as far as Batman and Superman go, I forget if it's like 10 years or what till they're public domain, or at least the earliest versions
Right,
of
right,
them.
yeah,
And you could write a Batman. You just can't have the Batmobile and other things,
yeah,
but you could write Batman.
right. It's the same thing that sort of happened with Mickey Mouse recently. How that Steamboat Willie became part of public domain.
Yeah.
But I still would think that
They've
Disney,
trademarked Mickey Mouse.
right,
They've trademarked the name Mickey Mouse. I have a comic coming out
right,
with
yeah,
him
yeah,
in
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but yes. So I can't say Mickey Mouse, but everybody knows who it is.
Exactly. So yeah, just do your own stuff, you
All
know.
right.
So
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate you.
Ben, yeah, God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
God
It's been
bless you. Bye
all
bye.
right, you too, man. Thank you.